Hi, I'm Tane.
And I'm Aid, and this is Altar Call, a Married at First Sight podcast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another off-season episode. We have one thing that we're going to talk about, which is a documentary. But let me say hi to Aid first before I get into it. Hi, Aid. How are you?
I'm okay. Just
Mm-hmm.
to update the people on basic utilities here in Houston. I did not have electricity for 7.5 days. And then when the electricity came back, I have not now had internet for, I don't know, 3 days after the electricity came back. So, yeah, just wandering around Houston, appealing to my relatives to provide me with basic utilities.
Wow. Is it true that another storm is on the way?
I'm not in that headspace to even know these things.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I know on our end we have like thunderstorms every day, and I'm trying to remember, is this what summer was like? I don't think so. This is way too frequent, but the thing is, it also doesn't come with no electricity, no internet, and stuff. So I'm just worried about the climate part, but you have to worry about the climate part, the electricity part, the internet part, and the gas part because you're driving around.
Don't even like. Granted, I had to do something today that took 4 hours in the car, and if I had internet, it would have taken 3.5, which is not that much better. But yes, tomorrow anyway. I just don't. I feel like I spend all day, every day whining for the past like 9 days about all of my trials and tribulations. I'm even tired of hearing my.
All right, a thoughts and prayers.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm enjoying the summer. I'm a summer girly, but it is really hot. It's just like stifling. Go out, take a walk. Bad idea. Come back into the house. But then you're like, I have to do things though during the summer, and I'm like, but yeah, can't complain. I like it. My husband, on the other hand, he hates summer so much, but it's been good.
I still follow like all the DC news sources, and
Hmm.
like a lot of days, you guys, it's hotter in DC than it is in Houston. Like a lot.
Yeah, some friends of mine came from Austin, and they were like, "Oh, it's gonna be cooler," and they came and they were like, it's just as hot, if not like a little hotter." And like, what is going on? I was like, I don't know. I have no idea. But yeah. But I mean, in all things, I have Love Island USA. I cannot tell you how much that has consumed my life. I know I've said it before, but honestly, it does consume my life. That I'm so glad it ends next week. It needs to go. It needs to go. Like, I had an appointment. The doctor's office called me. There was something I had to do, and they said we have an opening on Wednesday. And my first thought, I'm not gonna lie, was like, Love Island. And then I was like, wait, it's a Wednesday. There's no episode on Wednesday. Yes, I can do it. Count me in, but that's sad. So it
That's
needs to go.
hilarious.
But when I told a friend of mine, she was like, honestly, I had the same thought. So I'm not alone.
Oh no. If I had FOMO, I would have FOMO about Love Island because every podcaster is watching it, talking about it. Meanwhile, I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. I had a lot of fun listening to you and Nana's 2 episodes that you've done on Love Island. No idea what you're talking about, but I listened anyway, just because every time Nana comes on, I'm jealous. I'm like, when can I do an episode with Nana? But yes, this Love Island thing is very funny. Is the whole season? How many weeks is it?
6.
That's not bad for a show that's on so much.
Yeah, that's not bad. And I hope I'm right because anytime I say something, I just second guess myself because I'm like, someone's going to tell me I'm wrong. But I think it's shorter than the UK one. Like, I'm watching both at the same time, and the UK is much longer. They started before and they're ending later. And I also think, like, the US is kind of shorter too because they held hostage. I want to say that Ariana is just in Fiji because no one's doing that 12-hour flight back and forth, but like the one in the UK, the host goes back and forth from London and Spain where they are because it's like what, a 1 2 hour flight. But
Hmm.
Fiji's like 12 hours. You can't go, back and forth. So like Selly, who was in the previous season, is now the social media correspondent, and then Mora does the After Sun, who was in the previous season in the UK. They're just sat in Fiji and they don't go anywhere. So they're stuck there. And I think maybe like any longer than 6 weeks, they'll probably go crazy. Like I'm sure they have lives outside of Love Island and they want to spend their whole summer there. Like even friends, they have a friends and family visit and stuff, which might be tomorrow, but I think it's a video call. And it's like you had to earn it because who's gonna fly all the parents to Fiji that far? But yeah, it's been good times and it's been a nice distraction from everything going on in the world because a lot, as usual, is happening. So, mhm.
I will say that is one of the benefits when you're just obsessed with electricity. Things happen, and you're like, I can't be bothered to even deal with other outside. My sole focus is acting like reading updates will help me understand when this stuff is coming back, and looking at outage maps like that means anything.
Yeah, I'm
I don't have time to
sorry.
watch the news.
I'm sorry. But yeah, I mean, we still don't have a date for maths, but here's the bright side. I mean, it's still like a month to go. If they're not back, Netflix is feeding us Love is Blind. There's Love is Blind UK, Love is Blind Brazil. I mean, not Brazil, I'm sorry. Love is Blind Mexico.
Oh,
Yeah.
just so you
So
guys know, we are doing Love is Blind UK.
I'm laughing because A did not say Mexico. She's like, I'm not reading no captions.
And the funny thing is that, like, I took many years of Spanish, so that should be one that I'm at least willing to, but uh, why would I lie about myself?
I'm all excited about it. She's like, we're doing Love is Like UK, guys. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah, so I mean that should tide us over if we still haven't heard anything about maps till then. But in the meantime, guys, keep your suggestions coming and we'll see how it goes.
I just know if they are filming after parties, which we know they are, I'm sure the premiere date is coming to us at some
Yeah,
point
but
in the near future.
the longer the more you say that, the longer time passes since that first time that Keisha filmed, and we still haven't heard anything.
Okay.
So,
But you're
and I
right.
just. I just don't, maps just, they march to the beat of their own drums. There's no, again, we've lost all rhyme and reason. We used to have those where we could calculate and do things. We don't have that anymore. Guys, and all of the excitement, forgot that we didn't tell you what this episode is about this week. But this week we will be covering the Hulu documentary The Perfect Wife, The Mysterious Disappearance of Sherry Papini. So we'll get to that. But before then, I will also do a little brief recap of Perfect Match because we got a lot of comments asking about that. But yeah, that's our episode for this week.
So as we wait for maps, it's very funny because usually the only thing I watch on Lifetime is Married at First Sight, but they have Gypsy Rose, Life After Lockup, which I know a lot of our listeners are watching while simultaneously keeping up with Gypsy Rose's life in real time, which is real hard. Gypsy Rose does not like an editor because she is just making moves so quickly. On her show, she's still married to Ryan. In real life, she's impregnated by her boyfriend who is not Ryan. But anyway,
I mean,
um,
I laugh, but honestly, low key, I think it's sad because I know she's playing catch up on all the things she missed, but I wish she took a breath. And I don't know if it was coincidental because Hollywood does what it does, but she also featured on this week's episode of The Kardashians. And Kim goes to visit her and she's telling her about all the things and how it's hard for her to, you know, joined society and how she asked for therapy, but she was denied therapy, and they're going to work on a project together for rehabilitation and I guess prison stuff. And that Kim thinks that she can appeal to the younger people. But I did find it fascinating that she asked for therapy and she didn't get therapy, because if anyone is a huge candidate for therapy, it would be her, because in some way, yes, what she did, she was a victim of her mom's um ideas, I guess. I don't know what to call it. And yeah,
Abuse.
yeah, there you go. And she was not treated for it. And if she was refused, yeah, she spent 8 years. I'm just like, so has she got that therapy now? And is she operating and making all these decisions still therapyless?
She did eventually, I don't know when she met with Kim, but she did eventually get therapy in prison because she's talked about it on the show.
Okay.
Um and she, I believe, is in therapy like in the present day. Um she's just she's much
Wait,
more interesting than I sorry, go ahead.
she's in therapy and all this is happening?
I mean, therapy is not a magic pill.
I know it's not, but okay. All right. Okay.
She It's interesting to me as I watch the show because I think last time I said, wow, she's really not well adjusted, which I still stand by. But occasionally she has these moments of just like insight and clearly done the work. And I'm really proud of her. But she still makes life choices like, let me have a baby with my boyfriend. Y'all, everybody's business but mine. Kara, she did such a good job breaking down for us exactly what it means when you're having a baby and your husband is not the father, and what that means, and what you need to do, and what father needs to do, and what Ryan needs to do. Like it was so good. Check it out. I'm enjoying her recaps. But anyway, yeah, Gypsy Rose. It's a good. If you guys are looking for a recommendation, I highly recommend it because I'm enjoying it immensely. Her dad, her stepmom, her sister. She hates her husband, hence why they're not together. The boyfriend swooping in from the way. Oh, it's all very. It's a lot to keep up with. It's a lot to keep up with.
Yeah.
How do you think she pays her bills, by the way?
I know nothing about her. You know my stance. I'm not. I don't know. Just she popped up on Kardashians, but I honestly, I have no idea.
I'm
But
like, is
isn't
it
she
Kia?
getting a lot of sponsorships and things and whatever? She's everywhere.
Okay, I mean, it's got to be. I'm not on TikTok, and her Instagram. She actually does not have that many followers on Instagram. So I am like, so where? I assume Lifetime is paying her something. Her husband has like a regular day job. I'm just like, how much money is it, and where is it all coming from? She's not living lavishly by any stretch of the imagination, but I was just curious, like, how you guys paying your bills? Anyway, all right, guys, we'll be right back to talk about what the Married at First Sight people are up to while we wait for a new season. Life doesn't happen bi weekly, so why should payday? The money you make can be in your hands today with Earn In. Earn In is an app that gives you access to your pay as you work, up to $100 per day or up to $750 per pay period. Just download the Earn In app and verify your paycheck. Then access up to $100 a day as you work and leave an optional tip. Any money you access plus tips are automatically repaid from your next paycheck. Summer is coming and it is time for all of us to go on vacation. You can use the money you earn from Earn In to buy a new bathing suit or some new clothes for your fun summer vacation.
Download EarnIn today, spelled EARNIN, in the Google Play or Apple App Store. When you download the EarnIn app, type in Alto Call under podcast. When you sign up, it'll really help the show. That's Alto Call under podcast. Subject to your available earnings, location, daily max, and pay period max. See earnin.com/TOS for details. EarnIn is a financial technology company, not a bank. Bank products are issued by Evolve Bank and Trust, member FDIC.
You know what I don't miss at all? That vicious week before a period. The cravings, the irritability, and just generally feeling off. Now it's easier to manage PMS with estro control. Happy Mammoth, the company that created Hormone Harmony, is dedicated to making women's lives easier. And that means using only science backed ingredients that have been proven to work for women. They make no compromise when it comes to quality, and it shows.
Hormone Harmony contains science backed herbal extracts called adaptogens. Now, here's the beauty about adaptogens they help the body adapt to any stressors, like chaotic hormonal changes that happen naturally throughout a woman's life. For a limited time, you can get 15% off on your entire first order at happymammoth.com. Just use the code AltocallMAFS at checkout. That's happymammoth.com and use the code AltocallMAFS for 15% off today.
And we're back. So, Tane, what's going on with the people?
Not so much. A few things. I had wondered that since Justin from the San Diego season moved to Alabama, if he was still with his girlfriend, and the answer is yes. They are still together because she came down to visit. So I guess they have decided to pursue a long distance relationship.
Good for Justin.
Yeah. It's been a while, but Emily celebrated her 31st birthday, but she kind of did like a recap of her year before. And she said things like this time around last year, she found out she was going on a Euro trip or whatever, backpacking Vietnam. She found out that she had two broken wrists, and she had to have surgery on her wrists because she didn't know, they didn't find out that she had it. I mean, I think we kind of knew that when she was wearing, not the cast, you told me what the name was that she was wearing on After Party.
Yeah, that
All
makes
that. Yeah. It was undiagnosed. So they found that much later. And then Becca moved in to take care of her. And then eventually, I guess they got a place that was like, they were neighbors or something like that. And she said she was able to take time away from work for 7 months, which I think for her is a blessing. She took a paid medical leave, so it must have been really serious. And she said it was good for her because it helped her to heal emotionally, physically, and mentally. So good for her. Happy birthday to her. And she said she's healing very well, and she's learned accountability, growth, and she realized that all those things were lacking in her relationships before maths.
Oh wow. I just find that very I'm a little bit surprised she would say all that. Uh yeah, that's cool. Good for her. Also the 7 months off work. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody needs to find out where she works and see if you can get a job there.
Yeah. Um, Eric's mom, Atlanta season, had a stroke.
Oh,
She's doing well now and stuff, but I'm sure it must have been scary. I'm glad she's doing okay. But yeah, that happened. And that's all I got, really. I haven't seen anything, but hopefully by the next time there will be more. But everyone's just having like a good summer. People are traveling, people are going out, concerts. Oh, Noi has a new man.
did she soft launch
Her
or hard launch?
hard. Her best friend had a wedding. We saw her best friend. She was on all the time, and they're always together. I want to say Supri is her name, and she had a wedding, and she was there. And we kind of knew that Noi had a new man, but she hadn't launched. But she hard launched him. What I couldn't tell is if he is related to her best friend. Her best friend is Indian, and her boyfriend looks like he's Indian as well. So I just didn't know if it was a relative or not.
I noticed that that wedding was in Vermont,
Yeah.
and I just remember thinking like how many Indian weddings are there in Vermont? Probably a lot. Please correct me if I'm wrong, world, but I was like maybe that seems like a rare occasion.
Maybe her husband is from there. I do believe her husband is white.
I mean, Vermont is a state that's like, I want to say 98% white.
Yeah. I road
So,
tripped to Vermont a couple of years ago. So, yeah, it is. I did see people who look like me.
So yeah, if you see someone who's not white there, you're gonna be. I'm surprised. Surprised is the wrong word. Noted, I would say.
Yeah. So yeah, it looked like a fun wedding though. So as always, I always say like the only wedding I'm biased because we're Nigerian. I was like we have the funnest weddings, and the only people that rival are like Indian weddings. There was that famous the billionaire's wedding this weekend that was just a lot.
I
The-
want to go to an Indian wedding so bad, but I have not managed to get myself invited to one.
Keep manifesting, it will happen. Yeah, so before we get into the topic of the episode, I just said I would briefly talk about Perfect Match. A bunch of you have been talking about that, and I watched it because it's such a hot mess and I find it so entertaining. Brief background: Perfect Match is basically Netflix version of Bachelor in Paradise, where they get people from all Netflix shows and put them together and tell them to find quote unquote love. Don't think it's been successful so far. I think everybody's broken up at this point. But the thing is, they keep casting like the trashiest of people, like people who are genuinely not there, that you can tell they're not there to find love. Because if you cast Harry Jowsey for any reason, you just that's where you know that you're headed downhill. Do
Who's
you know
Harry
who Harry
Chelsea?
Jowsey? Oh, I was like, I said it, and I was like, I should. Um, he's like the fuck boy of all fuck boys. His original show was Too Hot to Handle, which again, Too Hot to Handle is where you're supposed to abstain from sex and they cannot, and he's basically a fuck boy. And he managed, for some reason he's been a standout, and he's managed to make a career out of that. And he's everywhere, and he's in every show. He keeps getting cast. He was actually on Dancing with the Stars like 2 seasons ago or something like that. And he's tall, and all the girls want him, even though he's a player. And that's who matched with Jessica from Love Is Blind. And I'm like, Jess, my Jess. You remember when we recapped Love Is Blind, and you were like, listen, if you have a child, you shouldn't come to you shouldn't come on Love Is Blind. Yes, Jess took it one step further and came on Perfect Match, and yes, decided to go with Harry Jowsey. And I'm just like, girl, what are you doing? Like, if it's just for endorsements, let's just keep it a buck. But don't keep bringing in your daughter and then making these choices with Harry because everyone knows Harry's a fuckboy. An incident occurred where they rotate people. So they bring people in and then they match up. And if you don't have anybody, you have to leave at the end of the night. One of the people who happened to be there was called Melinda. Melinda was also from Too Hot to Handle, but she was a standout. She's a very pretty black lady. That has nothing to do with anything. I'm just describing her. So that's why I said that. And she comes in and she's flirting with Harry, and she happened to host Dated and Related on Netflix. Basically, she's also made a career. And she comes in, she's flirting with Halsey, as Jowsey. They kiss, they do all the things, and then she tells Jess that. And Jess tries to embarrass her and is like, why would you say that? And kind of talks to her crazy. And I did not like that. And then Harry lies and keeps going on that she did it for clout, and it just got me really pissed off because to me, I'm probably not describing it well. It read like a microaggression. And these things just really irritate me when it comes on because they kept saying she's doing it for clout. And I'm like, Melinda, of all people, who hosted a show, who's on, like, why would she do that for clout and why would she lie? Because she's very outspoken. And then he lies and he cries and he does all the things. And of course, she believes him. She eventually leaves and they date for like, I think a week outside the house, and it didn't happen. I mean, she eventually apologized to Melinda, but at the moment where it was happening, I just didn't appreciate the way she spoke to Melinda and the way Harry spoke about Melinda because he really thinks he's the shit. And it turns out that they were keeping the footage, and then at the quote unquote the final episode, he confesses, and then they show us the footage, and she was telling the truth. Like he said, I will put babies in you and all the stuff or whatever. So, those things happen. Um, we have a fellow Nigerian on there. I don't know if you ever watched The Trust, but her name is Tolu, but I think everybody else calls her Tolu. which is another thing. People were pronouncing her name wrong, and I think she went on an Instagram live to say why it's important to pronounce her name right. She matched with Izzy. Do you remember Izzy?
I sure do remember Izzy.
Yeah, Izzy comes in all ready to match up with Micah. He has a huge crush on Micah, but then he starts telling, as soon as they meet, he starts telling her everything about herself, including her dog, and he comes off as creepy. And then he beats himself over the head about it because he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to come off as a fanboy." But Izzy was really giving small dick energy, and he left really early before he came back. He matched with Tolu, but it didn't really pan out. And then Tolu eventually matches with Chris, who we thought was the real deal. But again, as soon as they left the house, it was a hot mess. So there's a whole, but Micah had like it's not a good experience with someone named Kaz who was undated and related. And the only way I can describe it is that it was a hot mess. I think it was very entertaining. This season, the at the end of the journey, all the jury they all come back and then they vote, and they voted for a couple that came in at the 59th second because they were that petty. They weren't gonna vote for Harry and Jess. Well, Jess left. They weren't gonna vote for the alleged strongest couple. I don't know why, Alora. And they voted for Nigel and Christine, and that was that. So the ending was very anticlimactic, but Nick Lachey was Nick Lachey. He seemed to enjoy his time, and saying it again, it was a hot mess, but I really do enjoy Perfect Match. It's just entertaining to me. It's related to it. Oh, I forgot to mention Dom from last season, whose original show was The Mole, came back and completely came back as a fuckboy, very condescending, very messy. I think his nice boy image, I'm telling you, nice guys, like people who aren't genuinely nice, it always just comes through. And he just had a terrible experience all around, and he was not nice to Tolu. He paired up with Tolu, but very I don't know why she didn't see it, but to put it in the nicest way, Tolu is not his type. Dom is Canadian and a black guy, and he's emo, so he's always in. He's like 2001 rock band. That's his style. Like paints his fingernails, wears the plaid skirts or whatever and stuff like that. That's basically Dom, and he likes to think like, "Oh, I'm so nice, I'm so this," but yeah, he didn't have a good go around this time. So when he picked Tolu, we knew it was just to stay in the house because she's not his usual type. So yeah,
So the format of this show is you said it's like Bachelor Nation. Bachelor is it Bachelor Nation or Bachelor in Paradise?
Bachelor in Paradise.
Okay, Bachelor Nation just refers to like the
Yeah.
Bachelor Nation. Okay.
Hmm.
But it also seems to like I don't know who got it from who, but it has elements of um Love Island, like this whole like being paired off and trying to win as a couple.
Um. Yes, but I mean, Love Island did it first, but I always say that Bachelor in Paradise was the original Love Island. So there's no originality anymore. But yes, you have to win as a couple, except in this case, they vote. So,
Hmm.
like in Love Island, the public votes. In Bachelor in Paradise, well, there's no voting. You get a rose, or your prize is you get married or engaged. And in Perfect Match, all the other couples come back into the house, and then they vote for who's the most compatible at the end.
These like I was on a dating show and it didn't work out, so I went to a second show. I have a very hard time believing anybody who comes on these shows that they actually believe they're going to find somebody
Yeah.
because it doesn't seem to
What
work very often.
It doesn't. What eventually ends up happening is they date adjacent, like people who are on like different seasons or whatever. Because there's a girl, Elise, who's dating somebody else from another Nigel, for not Nigel, I forget his name, but dating someone from another Netflix show that he was on Too Hot to Handle. So I think they attend so many events together that then they start dating people in the family, so to speak. Because the same thing with Bachelor Nation. They might not be on the same season, but then they end up, oh, this one married this person's brother that was on Bachelor Nation or something like that. So maybe that's the whole goal, is to build a network.
Of people who are supposed, at one point at least, were relationship minded.
Yeah. So yeah, it's very, because one of the girls, Alara, there was a guy. The guy Micah was paired with Kaz. He was undated and related, which means coming in with your sibling, and he's a twin. And that twin dated Alara, and Alara was on this show. So it's just one incestuous pot, I guess. Not incestuous because they're not dating each other, but they know each other and they're all family. And then Dom with Harry Jowsey, Francesca was in season one, and then Francesca dated Harry, and the girl Dom was paired with another girl who was Harry's ex, and they won season one, but she cheated on Dom with Harry. So they came back, and Harry says they're now best friends, and I'm like, what? This is so weird. He says they have girls in common. Anyways, whatever. But that's how trashy Harry is. But
I
yeah,
mean, I didn't watch anything, but when you say that's how trashy Harry is, I'm like, so that's how trashy the show is?
yeah. Not gonna deny that. Yeah, Perfect Match is at the bottom of the barrel. Like, it's trashy, but gives me joy. So I don't care. All right, guys, we'll take a break and we will get right to it with Sherry Papini.
All right. So, Sherry Papini. And really, the documentary we're going to talk about is The Perfect Wife, The Mysterious Disappearance of Sherry Papini. Tane, did you know about this case before you watched this documentary?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I was
So I
hoping
did.
that you didn't.
Oh,
Just because I wanted to hear your thoughts on the husband. Because if this was to play out like a Dateline episode, everybody would think it was the husband. And I wanted
listen.
to,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
and I thought that the way they did this too long documentary, um, they were trying to make us think that the husband did it up until we found out that he didn't. Like if you didn't know and you just started watching, I feel like it would have come to a shock to the system that he didn't actually do it.
The whole time, all I kept thinking was like, somebody up there or out there loves this man, because it was not looking good for him. And you're right. Anyone without any prior knowledge about this would absolutely think that he did it, because all signs pointed to him. And he's such an animated person that he just looks guilty. Like, I'm surprised that he's still not part of it. Like, I had to be like, are we sure she's just not covering up for him? Because what? But yeah, he's lucky.
So for all of y'all, better go watch this. I mean, it is very slow moving. It could have been like an hour and a half. The most interesting thing is that they have Keith, the husband, because all the previous documentaries or whatever, there's a Dateline episode, they didn't really have like the people.
Mm.
So yeah, that was what I think set this Hulu one apart from some of the other ones. Will say I wanted to ask you this too. Were you aware of this case as like when she disappeared and stuff? Like, do you remember her missing or anything?
I want to say no, but I also know that in recent years everything is a blur, and I feel like there's so many missing women cases that I think I might be mixing it up with so many things. It's just safer for me to say no, because I have no clear memory of it.
Same. I mean, but it's definitely one where I definitely know. A missing woman in California. I have no recollection.
Mhm. Can I just? It's very weird. Every time they mentioned they were in California, it was like news to me. It just felt like it wasn't California. I don't know how to explain this, but it just felt like it should be in a different state.
Well, it's also like I feel like there are the parts of California that are more I don't want to say known, but like I've never heard of Redding, California. It seems to be kind of rural, which is not what we tend to think when we think California, but I totally understand what you're saying. I'm like, it had a Midwest feel to it.
I just kept thinking it should be Utah. Don't ask me why. No rhyme, no reason. But every time they show the flag or say California, I'm like, oh yes, it was California. I'm pretty sure it's one of just like suburbs and the outskirts and things like that. But yeah. So, just a brief background of what this documentary was about. One day, Sherry, beloved, typical, white, blonde, thin, perfect family, two kids, so bubbly, so happy, does everything. Her husband comes home. He walks into the door, no kids, no wife. He calls 911. He says the kids should be there. They're not here. His wife is not here, and he doesn't know where they are. He uses the tracking system, tries to track her phone, finds her phone on the side of the road with her hair with headphones, the ones with the wires. I think no AirPods yet in 2016. And her hair in there, and that was it. And then they started searching and searching and searching. Her sister, his aunt, his family, everybody was involved. They were trying to look for her, and days kept going by, and no leads. And some people were already thinking. I think her sister said one day she woke up and she just knew in her bones she was dead, which, I mean, you can't blame her. It just doesn't look good after you haven't found someone for a couple of days. And then we see all the footage. We see them talking to him. There, people are saying different things. I'm telling you, the memory is a very terrible thing, because some of the neighbors are like, "Oh, they're fighting." They're like, "Yeah, he's gonna bury her or something." Another one says, "No, they never fought that way." And I'm like, "Who do you believe in this case?" And then one day, 22 days after the kidnapping, she's on the side of the road telling someone to call 911, and Sherry Papini is mysteriously found, and they do all the investigations, all the stories. And was it 6 years later?
It took so she was found Thanksgiving Day 2016 and she wasn't arrested until 2022.
Yes. So 6 years later, we find out that this woman done made up a whole bunch of things, and she was not kidnapped. So we're gonna just, I guess, get into the details of that, because this is a crazy story. And considering that we just talked about Tell Them You Love Me, where the biggest thing to me is that we live among people who present as sane, but there's a lot of things going on there. And yet again, we have encountered someone who, if you just described her, they were, I think the in-laws were just like, it was so annoying how perfect she was and how she got everything right. But here we are. This is very scary to me.
Well, I think the scary part is once you start digging into it, she did lots of crazy stuff before
Yeah,
this incident. But
yeah,
you don't think all the crazy that was described, that's just general attention seeking or trauma related behavior, whatever you want to call it. People do that stuff all the lying, people lie all the time. You don't know how far people are going to go.
yeah. And common denominator, when they did describe her, everyone said she was an exaggerator. So it was one of those things where they're like, "Oh, that's just Sherry. That's just." But in your wildest dreams, of course, you're not gonna think like we're gonna go this far, except the person who mentioned, or was it the husband, the one about when she stabbed herself.
Yes.
And I'm like, that should have been a hint, people. You just don't stab yourself for fun. No, it hurts.
And not funny, but the interesting thing is her husband was like, I've never really known someone who self harmed, but it wasn't self harm in what I would call the traditional sense. It was, or maybe at one point it was, and then it got
Mm.
used for something else. It really is terrible that we don't get to hear from Sherry because she has a lot to answer for.
Yeah,
But I do think everybody who is involved paints a pretty good picture.
yeah. And then I think when you put it all together, it's a picture, but I can also understand that we're getting a, maybe not 360, maybe a 300 point of view, and it makes sense. But for these people, as you're living it through real time, maybe it just took them a little longer to put it all together, because on one hand, you have someone who's so nice, who does this, and you don't want to put it together. Because I'm just remembering that blog post that they found where she wrote certain things about Latinos.
Yes.
And Keith said he tried to bring it up, and she's like, "Oh no, it's not me. Someone used my like all these things that you brush under the rug." And it's like, okay, these are hints, but maybe in real time they just don't seem as big of a hint. I don't know.
I would say this. I would never expect anybody in a million years to predict this behavior or have any ability to prevent it, or even in the moment. Like, I think Keith got some shit from here and there for like staying with her for so long, even after she was arrested. But do you watch that American Nightmare documentary that was also on Netflix?
Yes.
So that happened kind of right before this or during this time. I want to say right before this. No one wants
Not
to call the kidnapping victim a liar. They saw what happened to that other police department, and they were like, "We're not going to do that. We're going to play our cards very close to the vest, even though we know she's lying." But that also meant that Keith didn't know she was lying for probably longer than he could have. So yeah,
well. First of all, that's another documentary where someone's looking out for the husband because I'm like, cough syrup, drugged you, and then they dragged her and you knew nothing. Okay. And then he was wearing a mask. Okay. Like, I totally didn't believe that. But I think Keith knew she was lying. But it's very hard because he said that. He said, as soon as I saw her, I knew she was lying. But when you don't have any proof and everything in front of you says otherwise, you kind of have to push that to the back burner because it's such a difficult thing to accuse. It's such a huge thing to accuse somebody of.
you don't want
So
to be
what?
wrong. You don't want to be
Exactly.
wrong.
Exactly. And, when she was found, guys, I mean, first of all, the 911 call, she was screaming and stuff. But I found it interesting that the guy said she just got kicked out by her boyfriend. This was just a random stranger. And I wonder why he said that because that was closer to, well, not a boyfriend, but I don't know where he would have got that story versus just, oh, there's a lady on the road who needs help. So that I found interesting. And I don't know why he said that. But then also, she had bruises, guys, like bruises,
A
scabs,
brand.
branding, all of the things. And I don't blame Keith for like, because when he walked in, he said, I don't believe her. But then he said, I looked at her body and all the things, and I was like, okay, she can't lie about this because that is a normal human reaction. You can't lie about stuff like that. And we saw the pictures, and her nose was broken. It was
And she
bad.
had starved herself.
Yeah,
I mean, at the
yeah,
time, they did not know she had starved herself, but I do think
yeah,
that really helps your story.
yes.
She was a very small woman and she had lost like 20 pounds.
Yeah. So yeah, so that's why I think he believed, but honestly, the evidence in front of him was overwhelming. I mean, sorry, he did not believe her, but was overwhelming that, you know, he had
Something
to go
happened.
along with it. Yeah, he had to go along with it.
And there's
But
also the factor of like, even if I don't believe she's telling the whole truth, something happened. Like,
yes.
maybe I don't believe every single detail, but something happened. She's traumatized. Oh, God. Yeah. It's
And,
funny
and I,
because it took me a while to getting to sympathy for Keith. Like, I felt bad for him from the beginning, but I also think he came off like an asshole in his initial police interviews. It took me really till the very, very end to truly, truly feel sorry for him. But
wow.
but that's also part, like, even when he's explaining things, he's very factual, which I think is really good. But then when you have to interpret what he's saying, like when he's like, she wouldn't go to the bathroom by herself. Like I had to go into the bathroom with her. She wouldn't eat food unless like four people prepared it because she said they drugged her. She wouldn't do this. She wouldn't do that. And the whole time you're like, this woman was really doing a number on you.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is a terrible thing to say, but it's because he gives off guilty vibes. He just looks like this is not. Sometimes people do it, and you see them and you're like, no, they would never. Like if you showed me Keith, I'd be like, yeah, he would. He did it. Yeah. which is so bad. But I think that's what it was. But that was a performance of a lifetime by um, Sherry Papini, and okay. The other thing was the text. She allegedly sent him a sexy text like, "Oh, come home for lunch," blah 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 blah. What if he did?
I mean, he asked the
But
question. He was like, if I had come home, would she have done any of this nonsense?
yes, and I'm like, what in from her point of view? Again, I agree with you that I think what was missing the most was her being in the documentary. Because what if he had come home that afternoon? Would she still have gone on with this ruse or not?
Well, there it was the lunch thing, but there was some other stuff going on. Like this key thing was how her severance was about to run out, and he
Hmm.
was like, "I'm not paying for daycare for kids who you when you're not working."
Yeah, if you're staying home.
I I think it might have been as simple as she didn't want to stay home with her kids. She wanted them to keep on going to daycare.
And I asked this question, people are always so extreme. It's just, for example, people have an affair and they want to go in with their new, love interest. Instead of just breaking up, they come up with a plan to kill the partner. Why? So if you just don't want to stay home, find something else, but not a whole production.
Uh, yeah, and I also she had sex with James. So for those of you who, so she was with an ex boyfriend. And, we'll give the police credit here and there, but this ex boyfriend was mentioned to them by Keith a couple times, and they never really looked into him, but that's who she was with. She had sex with him one time, but nothing in his interview made it seem like they were having that great of a time hanging out together. They were just sitting around. She was starving herself. I don't know what they were doing for recreation.
Running into hockey sticks.
Like, I don't think she ran off to him to have fun. I think this whole thing was means to an end.
It was a means to an end. But I think the reason why they did not go with James is because I think they were convinced that Keith did it and they were tunnel visioned on him. So they were focused on trying to prove that he did it, and that's why they missed that.
The timing is everything because he said guy's name early,
Yeah.
and they cleared him. I would say within like a week. They got the alibi from work. They tracked his cell phone. They realized he didn't have time to kill her. Maybe he was still kind of a suspect, but they basically cleared him within 7 days. But they had forgotten that he had said a couple names back on day one.
What a miss, to be honest. What a miss.
Let's talk about Sherry and her racism.
Because in America, everything always leads to racism.
I also want to be very clear about what was going on in the United States of America in November of 2016. Um, Sherry left a few days before Donald Trump was elected president, the man who was calling Mexicans rapists. So Sherry had already written that article that was absolute nonsense, basically about how she hated Latinos and wanted to fight them and they wanted to fight her. Racist nonsense. Then she tells them that she was abducted by two Hispanic women, one older, one younger. And she gives them can't recall if she gave them these names or she tried to claim that they gave her these names of smegma and taint. This woman is really, really sick. At one point, she describes smegma as being like an adult male gorilla who wouldn't let her shower. And then when she came home, she's like, I'm traumatized by all Hispanic people. I'm traumatized by black beans. I'm traumatized by hot sauce. I'm surprised she didn't say she was traumatized by a tortilla chip. Like, this bitch. I think what it really gets me is in a lot of these like fake cases, it's two black men, but there's something going on in America these days where there's a lot of like trying to blame things on Hispanic people where you're trying to come up with a criminal, and
Mm-hmm.
it's depraved. Like nothing reveals more about Sherry's pathology in that She had to take her opportunity to express her racism while doing this. I'm trying to get my kids' daycare paid for and my husband to basically follow me around and take care of me the way I want to.
Yeah, her racism and getting her lick back because apparently she got into a high school fight with Latinas that
So
happened
that was
many
what the
years ago.
story was about, and the story is complete nonsense. It never happened.
Somebody must have said something to her, and that's how she took it out in a fake story.
I'm, this is the other reason why I know the police know that she was lying. I don't know why. I do know why. There's a whole complex out there that tries to convince white women of America that people are trying to steal them and their babies for human trafficking.
Mm,
And they're writing these stories on Nextdoor about the Hispanic guy that they saw at Target who was trying to kidnap them. It
yeah.
is pervasive and it is so racist, and it makes me laugh because if you know the first thing about human trafficking, it's like this is how human trafficking usually goes. I mean, there's many ways how human trafficking goes that I know nothing about. But one of the ways is like you take somebody whose home life is not great, who may or may not have the most attentive adults around them, usually sometimes a minor, sometimes early 20s, whatever. You become their friend, you groom them, then you traffic them. Why are you going to go through all the trouble of taking somebody whose people are clearly going to notice is gone when you could take somebody who is like already vulnerable? Because that's how most of the time human trafficking works.
Hmm.
It drives me crazy. Crazy. Human trafficking is so bad. It is a problem, it is an issue. And this desire to be a victim is weird.
So that's a good segue into her why. I mean, she's the only one that's gonna know why, but just the bits and pieces that they dropped in for us, of course, it goes back to her childhood, I guess, which wasn't the best, and her secret desire to just always feel protected. And somehow she feels like she needs to get attention, to be noticed, and to be protected because even when she was found, her fixation on Keith was that he never found her.
Like, it's such a sickness.
So she did all that for him to prove, and then even when she came back, just always saying, I feel safe with him around, I want him around, I just want him there. And I I wish, or maybe her sister just didn't know. Like maybe her sister would shed more light on what it was she was missing. Maybe just stability. It could be something as simple as maybe stability. But if Keith gave that to her, why the need for more? I guess. I mean, this is me trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense. But it's just sad because I feel like in all things that adults do, they forget that the kids suffer. Because I remember when one of their family home videos, they have a lot of those where she was trying something or whatever, and it seemed like she was choking, and immediately her son started crying. And to me, that was just like a manifestation of like fear of something happening to his mom again and all that. And I'm like, all this thing. And you can imagine with the paranoia that Keith was describing, the kids have to experience that. And they absorb things. So I don't know. That was a commitment to her paranoia. That's another thing. Like remembering to be scared every time a Latino person walks in or somebody of a non-white race walks in. When you see a, what did she say, a styrofoam thing? Everything triggered her. Like Keith is also at the point like everything's good. Can we not talk about this for at least 5 seconds? That's so that's so mean, but I think he'd had it at that point. But I feel for Keith because the police really dropped the ball, and I think at some point he had no trust for them. But 19 months of no action is wild.
But this is going to sound really bad. On one hand, you want to deter people from faking like they're kidnapped. On the other hand, once they did catch her and could definitively prove that she had lied. They put all of this, I mean, it took them time, but they did eventually put a lot of resources into proving that she lied. For what? She went to prison for like a year. Like, how much of a crime is it to lie to police when there's actually no crime to lie about?
What is it about our justice system and everyone coming out early, but that doesn't apply when it comes to minorities?
D- Ain't that the truth?
Because somehow the sentences for minorities are always like this large numbers with no parole or no whatever. But every time we watch these documentaries, someone's coming out in 2 years, 8 months, and any day now, I fully expect for us to hear that Elizabeth Holmes is coming out of jail. So yeah.
You're right. Good legal representation. Well, I just watched a documentary a little while ago about death row in Texas, and they had this old footage. I think it was from maybe the 80s. And one
Hmm.
of the people on death row is like, I've never seen a rich person here. Not like rich people don't kill people too, but they always manage to get the lawyer who will make sure that they're not here on death row with all of us.
Yeah, there's always a loophole. There's always a loophole. But Sherry was also like a careless criminal, for lack of a better word. You had a secret Pinterest, and in secret Pinterest, you saved the exact tools that you were gonna buy, and then you bought the Elizabeth Smart book. Like, guys, when people commit crimes in America, I'm like, America will always find you. Like, they will do the detective work. It might not be immediately, but they will find you eventually. So I don't know why you would be so sloppy. First of all, don't do it at all. But if you are going to do it, don't be so sloppy and put the exact, branding machine that you were going to use on there. You might as well. Oh, it doesn't matter. She got out of jail. This woman is just as free as we are, Aid. And we did nothing.
I'm grateful, and I don't know how Keith pulled it off, but I also think it has a lot to do with kind of her behavior. I'm grateful she doesn't have her kids. I don't think she's even allowed to see them. And
Sorry, she gets supervised.
supervise. Okay. So
Supervised, yeah.
Kate Casey had like the director of this documentary on her podcast. And Kate was like, "Why did Keith agree to do this documentary?" And he's like, "Mainly so that there was a the truth was out there so that should she try to get the kids back, it wouldn't be a possibility."
Hmm.
I'm not sure if doing the documentary can do all that. It's amazing to me how people can always get their kids back. There are people who murdered their spouse; they managed to get their kids back. Um, so I feel like once the kids couldn't fawn over her the way that she had sort of created them to do, she
Yeah.
was kind of done.
But again, legal system, who knows? So maybe it's like an insurance policy. It may not prevent them, but you get to say all the things you probably might not be able to say or not admissible in court, but it's out there, for you to know. And if nothing else, that last part where the kid, I was a little confused about that, talked about the trick, I think to make them sick or something.
I think he was going in like a Munchausen by proxy direction, but his one
Yeah.
example was so confusing. Like there was a whole debate on Reddit about, yeah, if you're feeling nauseous, if you like breathe in some rubbing alcohol, sometimes it can help you stop feeling nauseous. So so where
Ah,
so where was Keith going with that? I wish that he had had a different example or a better example if he was trying to say that she did that. Don't get it twisted. I wouldn't put it past her for a second.
yeah, but
Um,
also there's so many ways when you have nausea for a kid. I don't think rubbing alcohol should be your first resort or your last. So to me, it's not it's a raised eyebrow thing for me. There's ginger ale, there's ginger tea, there's other not rubbing alcohol for a child. I don't know. I don't. I would feel weird just sniffing anything. Like, here, kid, sniff. It just seems wrong. So,
I I wish they would have managed to get James Reyes to talk because
yeah,
he seems like, and they gave us some interview and whatnot, but his part in this is probably more than it seems. He literally sat around with her for 3 weeks at his house. And when she, like, you're seeing this woman, like, ask you to throw a hockey puck on her so she has bruises, helping her chain herself up before you drop her off. Like, what was he thinking?
He wasn't, and she knew that's who she groomed because he was gonna do anything she wanted. But that's another thing. Like, yes, technically he didn't commit a crime, but in my mind, if this was all over the news, everyone was looking for someone, and you knew about it and took a part in it, how is that not perjury in some form or way? Are
The
you? I
police
mean,
never questioned him, did they?
you don't have to, but it was all over the news. So you're gonna, I mean, yes, I get it. The loophole could be like, nope, I never saw it. I didn't know about it. But if you know about, it's like,
But you
who's okay, who can I think of that's missing right now? It's like you get an Amber Alert and this person is sitting beside you, and you go to your friend's house and you see the kid sitting there on the couch and you're like, not my business, not my problem. And I'm not saying anything.
No, no, no. See, that's child endangerment. Like if
Okay,
you if you
an
go and you see
adult.
a kidnapped child, an adult is different. If an adult is in your house of your own free will, especially when they say I'm running away from my abusive husband, there's no legal requirement that you tell the police that you know where they are. I'm talking about legal requirements. A moral requirement would say yes.
Yeah.
But if someone says I'm on the run from someone who's mistreating me, the right thing to do there is to keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, but not after you heard her say that she was taken by two Latina women?
But see, that was after. Oh,
Yeah,
you mean
I
after she
know.
was found?
Yes, it
Uh,
was 6 years, Aid. He had 6 years to go and say, not quite. She called me up and said ABC, and I'm like, bet. I'll do that. But when you see other people are being accused and you said, oh, her hair was pulled out. Oh, she was bruised. Oh, she was branded. Not quite. That's where I think, isn't that some kind of perjury? That's human resources. I mean, well, tax resource, whatever.
you can't
That's
perjure
being,
yourself if no one asked you anything. Like if you can't lie to police if the police never ask you any questions.
I thought they did in the beginning, not before she was found. But
I
yeah.
don't think they ever questioned him.
Oh, okay.
I think they said we checked him out and we cleared him based on what we don't know. Keith is interesting in that way, in that in some ways, of course, I feel like the police really did Keith wrong in a lot of ways. I understand they can't be going to the husband and being like, look, we can't prove it, but I can tell you right now your wife was not kidnapped. I wonder if that would have changed anything for him if the police had, and if he believed in their competence to begin with. Uh,
He didn't. They said that. They said there was no trust, and that was when he said he kept calling every day. I think he was obsessed with the case because he's the one who actually drew the room and when the journaling and all that kind of stuff because he wanted proof that she wasn't. I think deep down that she was lying, but he had nothing. But when they did nothing for 19 months, I think that's when the person said, I think he lost trust in us. And I was like, for good reason, guys.
but if I like the injustice of it all pisses me off. But if you were to ask me, do I want the police working on actual crimes or do I want the police who at this point probably have enough evidence to know that this woman is lying to be working on figuring out that she's lying? I'll probably go with the former.
Yeah, but wasn't there a whole thing about people not knowing who's next or something like that? So
But this
prevent.
is where I feel I can't believe I'm so like sympathetic with them. But that whole case, same state, Southern California though, where the police decided way too quickly and way too early that someone was lying when they weren't. They were like, that is not going to be me. I'm not paying out that settlement. We're just going to sit here and keep our mouth shut, even though we know she's lying.
The only other loophole was I wanted to know what changed because it took them 3 years and 8 months to find James' DNA. What was the difference or what changed?
To match James's DNA.
Yeah.
So I think they knew. how did she ever explain? I couldn't quite remember this. Did she ever explain why there was male DNA on her?
No, but in my mind, I just assumed when he held a hockey stick and she ran into it, maybe blood or
Oh, no,
something.
no, no.
Maybe.
They definitely had sex. But in her whole story
Wait,
about,
wait, 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 wait. When they were together or before?
oh, no, no, when she was kidnapped, I think as like a parting gift, thanks for letting me hang out for 3 weeks. They had sex right before she went home.
Oh, I thought the cop said we've determined that no sex happened.
Oh, man, why did I
Yeah, he said exactly no sex happened. We know no sex happened. Because even when they said DNA, I did think it was like fluids, for lack of a better word. I just thought it was like
Oh,
hair,
okay, I misunderstood
sweat,
that part.
yeah,
Okay.
and whatever.
So
Maybe
I
from his couch or something. I don't know.
okay, I see what you're saying now because I had wondered when they were like, we found male DNA on her. I was like, so in her story of her two Hispanic women, where does she say a man is involved? And she never
Yeah,
does. And I was like,
yeah,
is that when they figured out that she was lying? Or
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So that's where I was like, okay, so all that happened. So how did it take 3 years, 8 months? What did they have? How long did they have it? And then even when they match, what did they do differently that suddenly they found a hit? Like I don't know. That was my question.
I
Um,
think his DNA was finally entered into the system.
through what? He had no record.
I
They
can't
said.
I can't remember how. But anyway, but that was their like incitement to actually start working on the case again was the DNA
Yeah,
match.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm wondering what like that would have started the whole thing. But yeah, again, somebody was looking out there for Keith because she was ready to ride this along, and then to think that even after they told her she was lying, she still wanted to have sex with Keith.
I mean, Keith was with her until she pled guilty. I'm
Yeah,
not mad at him though. I'm not mad at him at all.
yeah. Wow. But yeah, it's really I don't know. The word that keeps coming up is it's scary because again, 6 years she kept up that whole thing. You know.
I don't even think it was that hard for her because she got what she wanted. Um,
Mm-hmm.
she wanted the attention. She wanted everything to be about her. She wanted her children to be emotionally taking care of her instead of the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
And she got all of those things. So she was fine. She was dandy to get. She wanted Keith to be beholden to her. Um, she got all those things for such a long time. I just feel really bad for Keith and the kids that the cops did not figure this out sooner.
Yeah, could have saved them a whole extra whatever it was that went on. They also didn't talk about if Keith is like dating or anything of that part. They didn't talk about like his romantic life or anything.
I mean, there are just different types of trauma. I'm like, how could you ever trust anybody ever again? How
Oh,
will these
this
children trust anybody ever again?
oh America. The one thing they don't play with is dating.
You know, she's
Coming
dating.
huh?
She has
Of
a
course.
boyfriend.
She's the kind of person that can't be alone. But the thing is that they will always find people to date, like no matter what their past is. Cause like we come from a culture where like if your parents or anything get divorced or if you're widowed early or anything, 90% or if not 95%, no one's getting remarried. No one dates. They just stay single till the death. But you come to America and people date no matter what age, no matter what crime. You find people like I murdered someone and someone's gonna marry them in jail. Listen, there's love after lockup. So, someone's gonna tell you I stole the money from old people, I clubbed them on the head, and someone's like, you're the love of my life. So yes, I'm not surprised that she's dating.
She's dating someone, and his wife died under circumstances that can only be described as suspicious.
Girl, I don't need part two is coming. Match made in heaven. Match made in heaven. But I do hope they find peace. I do generally in life believe that there's some traumas that can't be healed. You just learn, to live with it and do the best that you can. this, like you just said, is going to do a number on, somehow I think Keith is going to be fine, but still on Keith and the kids because they were young and they really, love their mom and all that stuff. But I hope nobody wrongs them again because I don't know if they'll survive being lied to twice. So, yeah, but all in all, oh,
It's just so hard. I can't think of a word that describes it all. Like, there's lying, and then there's whatever the hell this woman did. And I can't
commitment.
think of a word to describe this level of lying.
Commitment. I mean, all in
Anyway,
all, I wanted to say it's one of the better Hulu documentaries, but I think so. I think it was usual Hulu. But like you said, they happened to have Keith there. But other than that, it was the same usual. Sometimes I think like Hulu phones in their documentaries, like, okay, at least we got it done. One for the books.
I think you should listen to the interview with the director. Even the way he describes it, like, this is not a passion project. um,
Yeah.
it was too dense. Like, I don't need to see what Sherry wrote in her diary. It felt like insistently slow. Like, Sherry says some words. The screen flashes yellow and whatever and pink. Sherry says some more words. And like, I don't care what she put in her diary. It wasn't all, or what she wrote in her book. It didn't add much to the story that they were trying to tell. So I
Then
just think they could have done this in an hour and a half instead of 3 hours.
then they try to make it dramatic with the plasma in the background and the shrills, and I'm like, guys, just get to the point. But again, I'll just wait for the Netflix version that will for sure have Sherry on it. Because
There's a
that's what Netflix
dateline.
tries to do to one up.
There is a dateline. I don't think I watched it, or if I did watch it, it really, because it had nobody, no sister, no Keith. It wasn't as good as this. But anyway,
Yeah.
all right.
Well, guys, let us know if you watch this. We'd love to hear your thoughts and what you think.
Yeah, let us know what you think of Sherry Papini and Keith Papini's story. And you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at AltarCallMAFS. That's ALTARCALLMAFS. We would love to hear from you guys on our socials.
Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any new episodes. Give us a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And until the next episode, we will see you then. Bye, guys.
Bye.